Hi friends, happy Thursday. Today is April 23rd and it's day 36 of missing my kiddos. No bueno. We are starting a new book. So we finished all of the Ramona books, all of the Henry books, and it's another book that's written by Beverly Cleary because I love her, love her, love her. This one is called The Mouse and the Motorcycle. And I'm really excited to be able to read it to you guys because usually our school year is so packed with busy that I don't even have time to read as much as I want to read. So I'm enjoying this time because I get to do as much as I can. And it doesn't get interrupted, except for my dog. But this is actually my second recording. I had to quit the other one because she wanted to go out. So, The Mouse and the Motorcycle. And, of course, it's written by Beverly Cleary. Here's the mouse. And the motorcycle. And here are our chapters, quite a lot in our table of contents. So our chapters are a lot shorter. Chapter 1, The New Guests. Keith, the boy in the rumpled shorts and shirt, did not know he was being watched as he entered room 215 of the Mountain View Inn. Neither did his mother and father, who both looked hot and tired. They had come from Ohio, and for 5 days they had driven across plains and deserts and over mountains to the old hotel in the California foothills, 25 miles from Highway 40. I have personally driven all the way to Ohio before. From here, it's a lot of miles, but it's so worth it. The fourth person entering room 215 may have known he was being watched, but he didn't care. He was Matt, 60 if he was a day, who at the moment was the bellboy. Matt also replaced worn-out light bulbs, renewed washers and leaky faucets, carried trays for people who phoned room service to order food sent to their rooms, and sometimes prevented children from hitting one another with croquet mallets on the lawn behind the hotel. Now, Matt's right shoulder sagged with the weight of one of the bags he was carrying. "Here you are, Mr. Gridley, rooms 215 and 216, he said, setting the smaller of the bags on a luggage rack at the foot of the double bed before he opened a door into the next room. "I expect you and Mrs. Gridley will want room 216. It is a corner room with twin beds and a private bath." He carried the heavy bag into the next room, where he could be heard opening windows. Outside, a chipmunk chattered in a pine tree, and a chickadee whistled, "Phoebe-bee, Phoebe-bee." The boy's mother looked critically around the room, like, I don't know about that, and whispered, "I think we should drive back to the main highway. There must be a motel with a vacancy sign someplace. We didn't look long enough." "Not another mile," answered the father. "I am not driving another mile on a California highway on a holiday weekend. Did you see the way that truck almost forced us off the road?" "Oh, Dad, did you see those two fellows on the motorcycles?" began the boy, and then stopped, realizing he should not interrupt an argument. "But this place is so old," protested the boy's mother. "And we only have 3 weeks for our whole trip." "Hello, I only had 2 when I went to Ohio, but I made it." "We had planned to spend the 4th of July weekend in San Francisco, and we wanted to show Keith as much of the United States as we could." "Well, San Francisco will have to wait, and this is part of the United States. Besides, this used to be a very fashionable hotel," said Mr. Gridley. "People came from miles around." "Yeah, 50 years ago," Mrs. Gridley said. "And they came by horse and buggy." The bellboy returned to room 215. "The dining room opens at 6:30, sir. There's a ping pong in the game room. Not a ping pong, the game. TV in the lobby, and croquet on the back lawn. I'm sure you will be very comfortable." Matt, who had seen guests come and go for many years, knew there were 2 kinds: those who thought the hotel was a dreadful old barn of a place, and those who thought it was very charming and quaint, so quiet and restful. "Of course we will be comfortable," said Mr. Gridley, dropping some coins into Matt's hand for carrying the bags. That's called a tip. "But this big old hotel is positively spooky." Mrs. Gridley made one last protest. "It's probably full of mice." Matt opened the window wide. "Mice? Oh, no, ma'am. The management would not stand for mice." "Well, I wouldn't mind a few mice," the boy said, as he looked around the room at the high ceiling, the knotty pine walls, the carpet so threadbare that many of its roses had almost entirely faded, like it's real thin, the one chair with the Casser. This word I did not know. I had to look it up before I read this. Let me look it up. Let me show you guys. Here's how you say it.
Antimacassar.
Antimacassar. Never heard of it. And here's what it is. It is a little, what do they call it? Like a little piece of cloth that goes on the back of a chair to keep it from getting like the oils from heads and stuff like that. Seriously, they couldn't have just called it a cloth. I didn't even know that word. Had to look it up. But you learn something new every day, right? Anyway, the wash basin, the towel racks in the corner of the room. I like it here, he announced. A whole room to myself. Usually I just get a cot in the corner of a motel room. His mother smiled, relenting, and then she turned to Matt. I'm really sorry. It was so hot crossing Nevada, and we are not used to mountain driving. Back on the highway, the traffic was bumper to bumper. I'm sure we'll be very comfortable. After Matt had gone, closing the door behind him, Mr. Gridley said, I need a rest before dinner. 400 miles of driving, and that mountain traffic was too much. And if we are going to stay for a weekend, I'd better unpack, said Mrs. Gridley. At least I'll have a chance to do some drip drying. So that means she's going to wash the clothes in the sink and then hang them up to dry. Alone in room 215 and unaware that he was being watched, the boy began to explore. Oh, and I want to show you this before I go too much further. This is who was watching him, or what. And I love this picture because it's from the view of if you were inside the mouse hole looking out towards Keith. I like that picture. I think it's cool. He got down on his hands and knees and looked under the bed. He leaned out the open window as far as he could, greedily inhaling deep breaths of pine-scented air. He turned the hot and the cold water on and off in the wash basin and slipped one of the small bars of paper-wrapped soap into his pocket. Under the window, he discovered a knot hole in the pine wall down by the floor. So a knot hole is, remember when I said the knotty pine walls? That doesn't mean like, oh, you bad wall. It means that it has these little areas in it. I'm sure you've seen it maybe on your fence boards. So this is a knot in the wood. And that's what he was doing. He's exploring that. And he went down. And then he poked his finger into the hole. When he felt nothing inside, he lost interest. Next, Keith opened his suitcase and took out an apple and several small cars, a sedan, a sports car, and an ambulance, about 6 inches long, and a red motorcycle, half the length of the cars, which he dropped on the striped bedspread before he bit into the apple. He ate the apple noisily in big chomping bites, and then laid the core on the bedside table between the lamp and the phone. Keith began to play, running his cars up and down the bedspread, pretending that the stripes on the spread were highways, and making noises with his mouth, vroom, vroom, for the sports car, wee, 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 for the ambulance, and for the motorcycle, up and down the stripes. Once Keith stopped suddenly, and he looked around quickly, looked around the room as if he expected to see something or someone, but when he saw nothing unusual, he returned to his cars. Vroom, vroom, bang, crash! The sports car hit the sedan and rolled over off the highway stripe. I look silly doing that, so I'm going to cover my face. The motorcycle came roaring to the scene of the crash. Keith, his mother called from the next room. Time to get washed for dinner. Okay. Keith parked his cars in a straight line on the bedside table before the phone. Beside the phone, where he looked like a, oh my gosh, I can't even read today. Let me go back on that sentence. Keith parked his cars in a straight line on the bedside table beside the telephone where they looked like a row of real cars, only much, much smaller. Made it through that sentence. The first thing Mrs. Gridley noticed when she and Mr. Gridley came into the room was the apple core on the table. She dropped it with a thunk into the metal wastebasket beside the table as she gave several quick little sniffs of the air and said, looking perplexed, I don't care what that bellboy said. I'm sure this hotel has mice. I hope so, muttered Keith. And here are the mice. That, my friends, is the end of a chapter. And I was going to read another chapter, but I think this is for the kids who don't like to sit still for very long. You only have to deal with less than 10 minutes. Okay, so have an awesome day. I will see you tomorrow for chapter 2, but I do want to tell you the title. Chapter 2, the motorcycle. Okay. Have a great day. Love you guys. Bye.